Hi everybody, it's Marnock. I'm coming from my sewing area, I guess you call it. Really happy to have my new Singer heavy duty sewing machine making hammocks and tarps and all that stuff a lot easier. So I had a request from somebody on Instagram. They had a question, and I told them I'd make a short video about it on how I make the continual loops on the ends of my hammocks to gather the ends of the hammocks. And I know there's probably a lot of different ways to do this, but this is the way I do it. So I take a piece of, this is am steel, and I get this at Ripstop by the roll, like I get all of my other materials when I make any of the camping gear. The only thing that I haven't purchased at Ripstop by the roll is when I order zippers for my hammock. I order those from Dutchware Gear. But everything else has been coming from the ripstopbytheroll.com. They treat me pretty well there, so I'm pretty happy. So we take this and we fold it in half, and with the loose ends I'm going to tie a figure 8. And the reason I tie a figure 8 is it's one of the only knots that doesn't come loose. Like, just about ever. It's a knot that I have a friend who is a stuntman, and he is adamant about if you want it to stay put, you tie it with figure 8 and it won't slip. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the gathered end, or what's going to be the gathered end of a hammock, and all I've done, you can see, is I've doubled it up and then sewn a channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a carabiner and I'm going to put it around this end so that it doesn't slip all the way through, and then I'm going to take the folded end and I'm going to put it all the way through this channel till it comes out the other end. It goes through pretty easily. I like using am steel. It's got a very good tensile strength to it, and it doesn't stretch to what I've seen. It doesn't, like, you use a 550 cord and it'll hold 550 pounds, but it stretches and then it loosens, and I don't really want that. Am steel also has kind of a slippery texture to it in my mind, is the way that I'd put it, and that really makes it easy to go through this channel. It doesn't get caught. I know a lot of guys like using whoopee slings and things like that for suspension. I'm a little more simple than that, and I've not quite figured out how to use the whoopee slings or how to make them. I know how to use them. So again, I've got, this is the entire width of the hammock all the way through, and then I take this carabiner and I'm going to put it through the loop, and this what makes what's called a lark's head, or some people call it a lamb's ear knot. You just pull it tight, and that is the gathered end of the one end of the hammock. Now what I do on this end is I take the carabiner off for just a second. Now I'm going to put it through the carabiner and back over top of the carabiner so it doesn't slide around, and this makes, again, another lark's head or lamb's ear, whichever you choose to call it. Now what I'll usually do, and what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to trim off the excess, and I'm going to fuse the excess, or fuse the ends, I should say. Again, this am steel is pretty strong, so it's hard to get through even with the sharp scissors that I use for stitching. And I'm just going to fuse the end so it doesn't come frayed at all. I let that cool, and that is half of my hammock that I'm making completely gathered. So I don't remember who asked me on Instagram. Hopefully I'll post this on Instagram as well so you can see it. Hopefully that answers your question on how I gather the ends of a hammock. Again, there's probably other ways of doing it. This is just the way that I do it. So if you have any other questions, by all means, ask. I know I make these and I sell them, but I will give advice to anyone that has a question about it, because this isn't my full-time job or business empire. This is a hobby for me. I enjoy sewing, and I enjoy making things, and this kind of keeps my hands busy and allows me to have a little bit of enjoyment out of it. And remember, if you are looking for a hammock or underquilt, top quilt, a custom tarp, or even one of my standard tarps, check it out, Marnock Outdoors, and reach out to me and I'll get you some prices, and everything is custom made. All right, so I went ahead and I've gathered both ends of the hammock, and now I'm going to take a length of the am steel, and this is going to be for the structural ridge line. So structural ridge lines are very personal. You have to decide for yourself how much sag you like in the hammock. Some people like it a little bit more straight, some people like a little more sag. It's all about your specific comfort level and your hang. So what I do is I start at about 80 to 85% of the total length of the hammock. That's how long I start with the two ends. And I tie a figure 8 on each side, and it's actually a figure 8 on a bite, to be clear, or a doubled over figure 8. And on one side, I leave a little bit of excess. And what that's going to allow me to do is, if I need to lengthen the structural ridge line, it gives me a little bit to play with, so that I don't have to go out and buy more am steel. And when I find that ideal hang, then I'm good. I don't have to worry about, going in another line. I can trim off the end, or I can leave it and just put a couple of half hitches in it, or 2 half hitches to keep it taut and out of the way in case I want to change the hang later. So the way I'm going to string this hammock, the ridge line, is, first of all, I'm going to take off the carabiner on this end, and I'm going to put the end that doesn't need trimmed, the loop, the bite that I made, over top of it till it reaches the gathered end. Now, before I put on the carabiner again, this is the stuff sack that I make for it. I'm going to put this line, this gathered end, or this continuous loop, through the small opening in the bottom. Now, I've made sure to double stitch and make it really secure, but what this does is it allows the stuff sack to be basically the line to be fed through the stuff sack, so that when I go to put the hammock up, this rests up on the suspension line, and I'm not worried about where did my stuff sack go. And then I'm going to put, again, Lark's head, I'm going to put that carabiner back on, and now the stuff sack will not come back off unless I either tear the stuff sack, which I don't want to do, or I take this carabiner off. Then, with my structural ridge line, the other thing I'm going to do before I put it around the other end is I'm going to take this ridge line organizer that I put together. I'm going to feed it through the top here, and it's okay that there's this excess. That's fine. That'll be addressed at a later time, whether I just tie it up out of the way or trim it off. Actually, I'm not going to. The person that is getting this hammock will do that. This is not one that I'm necessarily keeping. Now, this allows ridgeline organizer. One side's got 2 pockets, the other side's got a large pocket. So when you go to lay in your hammock, put your keys, your flashlight, your wallet, your phone, whatever you need can be up right above your head as you're laying, and you don't really have to worry about, something being in your pocket poking through the hammock, or you put it on the ground and you kick it in the middle of the night when you're getting out to do whatever, and you lose your keys or you lose your wallet. So that leaves everything right in reach for you. And then I'm going to go to the other gathered end. Again, I will take the carabiner off. And I'll put it through this loop so that this comes down to the other gathered end. And what this does, and any of you that use a structural ridge line already know this, what this does is I can put my suspension up and pull these tight so that the ridge line is taut all the way from tree to tree, and it gives me the exact same amount of sag in the hammock no matter where I hang it. And that guarantees that every time that I go to get in my hammock, it's going to feel the same, it's going to have the same, lay to it, and that when I'm camping, I don't have to get up after laying for a half hour and realizing, okay, there's too much sag or there's not enough sag, and now I'm not comfortable. So that's how I string the gathered ends with a structural ridge line. I'm going to go set this up in the trees, and we'll see how comfortable it is. Okay, so I'm testing out the hammock here, and it's not bad. but I think that it needs a little bit more sag to it for my taste. So I always like to dial in, especially if it's a friend that I'm making them for, that they've laid in mind and went, ooh, I want one of those. I like to dial it into what I like, and then still leave a little bit of excess so they can adjust it. So I'm going to shorten up this ridge line. It's hanging a little loose anyways, and I like it to have a little more sag to it. But as you can see, got the ridge line organizer, and up there you can see that there's the stuff sack that stays on the suspension. But I just feel a little bit too much like I'm laying like a banana. So to get a little bit more of a flat lay, I'm going to shorten up the ridge line, put a little bit more sag in it, be able to lay a little bit more on a diagonal. So we'll try it again in just a minute here. All right, so I shortened up the ridge line by about 3-4 inches, and man, what a difference does it make. I don't feel that pressure on my calves. Not getting that, don't feel like I'm going to cramp up if I lay here for a while. I can lay at a nice diagonal. I don't feel pressure against my head here like I did before. It was just too stretched out for me. And like I said, I like a little more sag than I had originally put. I made use of my ridgeline organizer. So I've got my wallet and my keys and my pocket knife, and anything that I have that could possibly put a hole in this hammock that would be in my pockets is going to go up here, or if I'm camping, it's going to go in my pack. The last thing I need is to start a rip, and I know this is ripstop material, but I don't want any weak spots when it's supporting my weight, because I weigh a little bit more than I probably should. So the last thing I want to do is end up on the ground. And the single layer hammock that I made, and you can actually see through it right here. You can see behind me. This is not a super thick material. It's a 1.9 ounce ripstop nylon I got from Ripstop by the Roll. It's not super lightweight, but for me, I like it. It's comfortable. It doesn't have as much stretch as a 1.1 would have. I like that little bit more feeling of security. And honestly, for the amount of backpacking I do, that 0.8 of an ounce per yard is not going to make that big of a difference in my personal life. So I like making them out of the heavier material. And actually the one that I camp in is a double layer. I also do an integrated mosquito net and a snow cover on a different hammock as well. But this is my Hammock hammock. Really enjoy making it. I hope the person that gets this, they don't know they're getting it yet. I hope they really enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. And I hope I answered that question about how I do the continuous loop on the end. I know I kind of turned it into a whole, this is how I put a suspension on a hammock, but that's okay too. For those of you that are trying your own hammock builds for first time, there's nothing quite as cool as going out camping, putting up gear that you made, having a great experience in it, and having somebody come up and say, hey, where did you buy that? And you can look at them and go, no, I made it. So for Hammock Outdoors, maybe I'll see you out on the trail.